Hey guys, this is Locke. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how you can tackle the 3-star hard stage. This basically the stage, this green map 3-star stage. I think doing the stage is actually pretty important. I was able to get a lot of benefit from the stage. Now, let me just talk about what you can expect to get from it, or at least what I got out of it. I got a ton of legendary equipment, like all kinds of armor, all kinds of weapon pieces. I was able to transcend these pieces. Like if you just take a look at my um, some of my gears, right? Like I got all of no, not that, all of this from there because it drops this skill up set. So I got so many pieces that I have like a +5 boots, a +4 gloves, +5 helm, and so on and so on. So as you can see, I got a ton of equipment from there, and even my like armor pieces as well. Like I got a ton of these +5s, +3s. All of this came from there. So it's a really nice stage, and I was also able to get 3 legendary plus accessories from there as well. Now that's a little bit luck based, but still, like it is possible to get it, and I find that that's a good place to farm them. On top of that, you get a lot of these re-entry tickets for dungeons, and that really helps you, progress faster. Especially the Soulstone tickets, because then you can level up your legendary units faster, and so on and so on. Basically, it's a really important stage in the game, in my opinion. If you can start doing it, if you can start autoing it, it will significantly help you to progress. So let me talk about when I was here, what I did. So when I started, I used a team like this, which I'm not going to use right now, but I used this team with Rudy and Rachel as my main DPS, Karen, and Shay. So this was my 4-man team. Rachel was my only DPS unit at this point in the game, so that's all I could use. Rudy was my only tank that I had invested into, so that's all I could use. And this is what I started with. I didn't use this pet. I don't actually remember if I had my legendary pet at the time or not, but if I didn't, I would have probably used Wilder as a pet because that's just what I used at the time before I had my legendary pet. So what I did was when I started, I couldn't auto this thing because it was just too difficult. You know, the mobs would target Karen, because they do target the backmost unit with 2 of the different moves. So she would die often. So I had to manually do it. And I would do like maybe a few runs a day. I wouldn't spend like hours on it, but I would do like maybe like 2 or 3 runs, and then I would take a break and I would do something else. And but I kept at it, right? And like over a period of time, like that, I would continuously get drops from there. And at the same time I was doing this, I was also in the story mode. So I've finished all of hard. So I would be starting to do my very hard chapters, and I got stuck in the very hard chapter. I believe it was chapter 5 with the 3 succubi. Was it this one? Yes. So I was stuck here with the 3 very hard succubi, very hard, at this stage, and it was very hard because they again kept targeting my Karen, and she was dying to both the succubi in this stage. I was like hard stuck on there, and she was also dying to my field exploration. So I had to figure out what to do about that, right? And so there were 2 things that I did that really helped out. The first thing that I did, which is applicable to everyone, like everyone should have Karen. The first thing you want to do is you have to figure out some cooldown set, or some other kind of cooldown reduction from your divinities and whatever, to make sure you get this skill's cooldown down to 20 seconds. Because this skill lasts for 20 seconds and the original cooldown is 23 seconds. If you can, bring it all the way down from 23 to 20 seconds, it basically means you always have an attack debuff on the enemy you're fighting. So at level 15, she has a 33% decreased attack. It'll probably be like, I don't know, 20 something, 27 or something at a little bit lower level. But that's basically, you're reducing the enemy's attack by 27% all the time, right? Like if you have that like 3 seconds of non-coverage, in those 3 seconds you might die, right? So having this as a full coverage of, you always have this on, is one of the first things you need to do to be consistently able to auto this stage. You actually get this by having a full 5-piece set, but if you have like something else, you have some other like you have like a very good defense piece or something that you want to put on her, you have to figure out some other way to bring that skill cooldown down to 20 seconds. Again, Divinity is something that would help. So maybe, you know, you can play around with Divinity and this to get it down to 20 seconds. The other thing that I did was, personally, I landed on this really nice piece of gear. This is a Radiant cooldown set piece. So I brought this one all the way up to 20, which increased my defense from like 165 all the way up to 424. Now, you don't actually have to get a Radiant piece. You might actually be able to get away with like 2 pieces of legendary gear that's like plus 10. You can do something like that. But I didn't really invest in my tank at this point. I invested in Karin, because if Karin died, I can't, like, my auto fails. If my tank dies, you know, she can bring him back, and the tank can continue tanking, right? But if she dies, the game is over most of the time. So I really needed to make sure that she was alive, and this was vital for me in both the very hard story and the hard exploration. So that's why I just, you know, I didn't bother leveling this. I think most of his gears were at like +3 or +4, and then I just stopped, and I just started investing in her body armor piece, because I have a Radiant piece. Any defense, like any incremental defense that I get here, is going to be way better than increasing both of these to like 10/10 or something, right? So that's the reason why I went +20 here. So this defense piece and bringing this cooldown down to 20 seconds, because at the time I was using like some other mixed set. I was using, I think, a defense set and a 3-piece cooldown set or something, because again, she was dying, so I wanted to increase her defense. But having these two in combination allowed her to survive most of the time one hit. So I was able to, you know, I was still kind of auto playing a bit. Like, I would set it on auto, but I would kind of pay attention to it, right? Like I would be reading or something, and I would be like, okay, if she got hit a little bit, then I would have to move her out of the way or something. But before, like when I started, I was like very hands-on. I had to move her all the time. If I made her stand still for a little bit, she would die. So this is yeah, so this was the tactics that I used. And also, because I used Rudy, I had, you know, shield for everybody. I had block for everyone, which also helped her availability as well. And you know, you might not have Rudy. You know, you might not have Rudy, and you might not have Rudy Plus. You might have to go with some other tactics to keep her alive. But the one that I'm going to show you right now how to do is actually using a blue tank. That's the reason why I put Cade, because I feel like Cade is actually quite nice for this. And let me tell you some of the advantages you have when you're using Cade. So assuming that, you know, you have Karin and you did as I said, and you bring this down to 20 seconds, so you're always going to have an attack debuff on the enemy that you're fighting. Now, Cade brings a couple of things to add to that. One of his skills decreases the target's stealth damage. So this is a different debuff. This is not attack down. This is like the damage dealt is reduced, and it's quite a nice thing to stack on top of the attack debuff that I told you about. Now, this one lasts for 20 seconds, and your skill cooldown is 27. So I think it'll be really hard to bring this all the way down to 20, but it's still, you know, it's active for quite a portion of time. Like, you're off by 7 seconds. Maybe it started at 30, and, you know, Divinity started under 27 seconds. But, you know, either way, you're at least covered for like 20 out of 30 seconds, right? And that's quite a pretty significant amount of time that you have reduced damage that you're taking from him. On top of that, he has this skill which allows himself to keep healing himself. So at the time, I found that my Rudy would actually die once in a while, because I had 2 healers and he had a shield, but sometimes, like, you know, there was some portion of time where the shield was not active or something, and he would just get crit by 2 or 3 hits or something, and he would die, and then I would have to raise him with Karin. And sometimes when he raises with Karin, he goes and stands next to Karin, and they both get caught in AoE, and the run is, you know, everyone dies basically, right? But with Cade, since he has an additional heal, with this heal and Karin's heal and Shay's heal, he might be able to like, you know, survive longer, right? I will show you, like, this is the gear I have. Like, his defense is 1761, and you might be surprised to see how much damage he's actually taking from these monsters. Like, the monsters don't hit him for a lot. You just stick around to see how much damage he actually takes, and you might be surprised, or maybe you already know this. But anyway, so his availability is pretty good with all that. Uh, with all these things stacking there. He also has taunt as well, which is really useful for this stage because the boss does switch the target to the back sometimes. So this is a little bit more easier to try to get the boss to target you. For the other one, the Phasma type boss, like I had to run around my Karen a lot. Like whenever he targeted the backline, I had to keep kiting him, and it was like very manual and it was like a headache. I didn't use Cade. I used Rudy. So if I had used Cade at that time, maybe it'd have been a little bit easier just to get aggro off of her by using taunt. It does have a skill cooldown of 26, so he's not able to spam it all the time, and it's not even a 100% chance to taunt. But anything helps at this point, right? Like it might save your run. It might make your autos a little bit easier. And then his passive, again, this is something that is very nice to help him, like basically not let your runs fail. Because when Rudy dies, although he gets revived, he might just stand close to Karen and then she gets AoE down and the run fails. Whereas with him, he will still be alive for 9 seconds, even if his health goes down to 0 because of his passive. So in that time, Karen can heal him back to full. And the cooldown of this passive is 83 seconds. Maybe it started at like 90 something before the cooldown reduction, but still like a minute and a half. That is a lower cooldown than your pet skill. So this might actually, when you're doing auto runs, this might actually continuously keep you from from letting your runs fail. So I would recommend looking at him, and like right now when I'm showing you my runs, it's pointless for me to take Rudy because he's level 46. It's pointless for me to take Rachel because she's level 50. If I show you these runs, you probably don't have a level 46 Rudy and level 50 Rachel. If you did, you probably don't need help to do the stage, right? So there's no point in me showing you something like this. So that's why I was trying to show you something more accessible that people are more able to mimic. That's why I'm showing you Cade. And if you have something better, like if you have Rudy or the L plus Rudy, feel free to use them. But if you're having trouble, just give this strategy a try anyway, because I think like some of the defensive capability of Cade really surprised me. So just give him a try. And then his ultimate, now because you're using Shay, the ultimate's going to cool down a lot faster as well. And the nice thing about this ultimate is that it's a 100% chance to decrease the target's defense. So the DPS in your party is going to be doing a lot more damage. So in addition to having skills that are actually increasing his defensive capabilities, he also does help you to take the boss down a little bit faster because of breaking the boss's defense. So for my run, this is what I'm going to use. Like I'm using +0 gear. I'm using this shoe because I apparently don't have a +0 red shoe. And then I was using Delins. This is the gear I have on Delins. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like you can use any any DPS. Like my attack is already at like almost 5k even with like crap gear because I have a very high codex. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. But this is the defense value that I have, 1761, and we are going to go into it, and you can see how much damage the boss does with the setup. Also, I'm using all the defensive masteries, which you should be as well. And I am also using this as a pet to again stack the defense up as much as possible. This has a 7% increased defenses by 7%. If you don't have him, you can also use this guy. He might be an alternative. He decreases the damage received by 6.5%. But there might be other units that you can use as well. But here you want to go as defensive as possible because you want to survive. That's what's letting you auto this run, right? So if you don't have anything better, you might have to go with like a block rate 13% or something. But again, if you don't have any of those, then you might as well go with like whatever you have. Like if you only have an attack pet, go with that. Shay is also not a bad idea because again it decreases skill cooldown, which helps to decrease all of Cade's abilities, and all of his abilities are very good, which I just already went through. So those are all different ways you can go about doing this. But before I talk more, let me just get into it. By the way, for formation also, I'm using a defensive buff on him as well. So let's get into it, and you will see how much damage Cade takes. And hopefully you're surprised by this, because I was very surprised by this, because he's only a level 40 Cade with 1.7k defense. And so let's see. That was 731 damage, right? 1k damage. He has 20k health, by the way. You know that, right? So I didn't see how much that was, but you can see already, like he is quite bulky. He took 700 damage there, 2.6k, and the reason he's taking such little damage is because of all the things I talked about. Like, let's see how much Furious Strike does on him. It did like 3k, right? Like that was unheard of for me. I was like completely blown away by this, but he is a really good tank. But anyway, the reason why he's taking very little damage is because you have that attack decrease debuff from Karin that's going to be always active if you brought it down to 20 seconds. You have Cade's skill that's decreasing the damage that the boss is going to do, and then you have Shay also has a damage received is damage a decrease or something, some other buff that stacks on there, right? I'm losing the names of these buffs, but basically, like, you're stacking different layers of defenses and debuffs and so on and so on to decrease the amount of damage that Cade is taking, such that he can just stand there and absorb the damage. And now you might be a little bit lower than where I am. Like, maybe you have a level 38 Cade or a level 36 Cade, and that's okay. But this is a starting point, right? Like, if you were just hard stuck and you have no idea how to approach this is an idea I'm giving you. So you can start using Cade, level him up, and it's a good thing that he's a blue unit, so you don't even have to sacrifice the legendary soul throne of somebody else that goes to Cade. But yeah, this is one way to tackle this on. As I mentioned before, Karin was something that I really had to focus on, because if she gets one shot by like some random ability that's targeted, then the whole run is ruined, right? So I had to really get her defenses up to make sure that she doesn't get one shot. But because of the two things that I mentioned earlier, like her attack debuff and Cade's damage inflicted debuff or something like that, that will help her to just stick around and be able to survive this damage a little bit better. But if you can't, right, like if you still find that the boss is targeting you a bit, you just have to kite with her. You have to move her around a little bit so that she's not caught in these AoEs. And again, with Cade, inflicting taunt, thankfully you don't have to keep running around for too long before he gets aggro again. But something like that, you might have to keep moving her around that so that she doesn't get caught in the AoE if she can't survive it. But that's really it for now. I'm going to show you what Cade's defense looks like now with all the other things added. Would have gone up a little bit more. So it's 2,182. So with 2.1k defense, this is the damage that he's taking. And as you can see, I'm not even using the accessories. I just left this accessory on. He's not really blocking too much, but you don't need like legendary accessories or anything to do it. You might need a like a +0 legendary gear to do it. If not, you might need like a +10 blue gear or something. But hopefully you start getting those pieces. Like, even if you have to manual it and you start getting it, before long, you can hopefully be able to auto it. Like when I started, I didn't have legendary gears when I started hard 3-star, right? So I had to do this manually for a bit, but slowly over time I started getting those legendary gears. I started doing the the very hard story as well, and I started getting some gears from there, and then mix and match, and eventually I was able to auto it. But I definitely wasn't able to auto it when I started. So that's it for now, and then I think I'll let this play out for a little bit as well, so you can see how this looks like. Using Delens is nice, such that he will go behind the enemy, so it's less likely that he'll get caught up in AoEs. Sometimes he still, is positioned badly that he does get caught up in AoEs, but as you can see here, he is positioned behind the enemy already. So if the boss uses skills like that, thankfully he doesn't take the damage. And obviously, like, my Karin is very high level right now, so she can easily survive this. But depending on where your Karin is, like if she's able to take some hits, you can completely auto it. If you can't, you have to kind of move her around. But let's see how much damage he takes from this Hateful Strike. Well, I couldn't see it. Maybe because I had to. Yes. Yeah, the number didn't display, but probably wasn't too much, right? Like he can. Oh, he's taking more damage from this guy now, but still, like with the heals and the shields and everything, he's able to survive. Like he takes 1.9, I think there 1.9k damage. Um, yeah, and if he does happen to die, okay, let's see how much he takes from this hateful strike. Uh, yeah, it's hard to see. I don't know. It didn't display, or I was blind and I didn't notice it. But even if he does die, you do have a little bit of a chance with what's it called with Karen's revive skill. And the nice thing about being revived is that once he is revived, all his skills are on cooldown, so you can taunt the boss right away, and it won't target whoever he was attacking. The only thing is, if you are doing this on auto, when he does revive, he might be standing next to Karen, so she might be getting caught in the AoEs. So you don't want him to die, and there is a lot of leeway with him not dying because of his passive, and then Karen's revive, and so on and so on. But yeah, I highly recommend just trying out Cade. He is a rare unit. He's not a legendary unit, but he seems like a very solid tank for like so many different PvE content. I didn't even look at him because I had Rudy, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's the best tank. Like everyone wanted him, so everyone pulled him, and I got him, and I'm like, of course I'm going to use him. I have the best tank in the game. But if I had known more about Cade, I would have probably raised him for PvE because he's just so useful. Like I might have run like two, like I don't know, maybe in some compositions I might have just gone with like two tanks or something, and two tanks and Karen and forgot about Shay, or I don't know, some other composition. But I never even thought about Cade until like now when I'm thinking of guides for other players that don't have Rudy, and I'm like, what do I do? And well, the answer is right there. What do you do if you don't have Cade? Well, that's a little bit tough because the other tanks, when I looked at it, were not that great. So it'll be a little bit hard to do. I mean, you can try to do it with like Adele or something. He's classified as a tank, but I mean, all of his stats are lower than Cade's because he's a green unit, while Cade is a blue unit. Um, so I think at some point, like to do this, you probably need to have a good dedicated tank. If you don't have Cade, you can try with like the legendary tanks that you have, like Rudy Plus, and go with a different strategy. But this, I think this is probably one of the most accessible strategies because he is a blue unit that I can give out to players. So hopefully you found this guide useful and it helps you guys to do, the, this chapter, like the 3-star field exploration on hard. Um, and yeah, that's it for this video. If you guys have other questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below, and I will do my best to help you guys out. But that's it from me for this time, so I hope to see you guys in the next video. Take care now.